Well, with me now is Tom Burke, a former senior advisor to the Foreign Secretary's Special Representative on Climate Change and now the chairman of Third Generation Environmentalism, which encourages sustainable development. First of all, Mr. Burke, what do you make of this documentary?
Well, I think there's both bad news and good news. The bad news is that the climate's changing faster and its impacts are nastier than we used to think. The good news is that the things we need to do to solve it, decarbonising our economy, using renewables, getting more efficient, all of those costs are going through the floor. It's getting cheaper and cheaper to do what we need to do. And what I think Al Gore is doing is putting his finger on really what the nub of the problem is, which is not the technology, we have lots of that, it's not the economics, we won't wreck our economy by solving this problem, but it's getting the politics right. And that's what I think he's setting out to do with this film.
So how exactly do we now put that into action?
Well, what his part in that is to mobilise lots of people in the base of society in order to put pressure on parliamentarians, on representatives, politicians from their own constituencies to take this problem seriously. At the end of the day, politicians pay more attention to the people who vote particularly for them than others. And that's what is unique about the approach that I think Gore is taking here. But then you've got to build that with the thousands and thousands of organisations there are. But what's really changed in the last 4 or 5 years is the extent to which business has begun to get in on the act and discover the extent to which the risks to the climate are also risks to business. So what we saw on the same day as Trump pulled America out of the Paris Agreement, we saw the world's largest investment company vote against Exxon because it wasn't putting enough emphasis on climate risk to the profitability of the oil companies.
But surely, on the whole, President Trump is a big problem.
Oh, there's no doubt at all that President Trump is a problem. He's a problem not because I think he can stop us doing what we're doing, but what Paris did was set us on the right road, but it didn't take us far enough down and we're not going fast enough. And I think Trump will slow down the acceleration we need to make in how we deploy the technologies we have to solve this problem.
Because Al Gore, speaking in that interview there to Casey, he said that the movement, the climate movement, has seen an incredible surge because people were worried by what President Trump said. So you do not agree with that? Well,
no, I agree with what Gore has said in the sense that there's been this enormous surge because people are quite correctly scared about somebody as erratic as Trump in the White House. But I think that his direct effect on the progress we're making, and Al Gore actually pointed that out the day after Trump pulled out of the Paris Agreement, 19 other nations at the G20 meeting reaffirmed their commitment to going ahead. So he has no influence, I think, on other politicians. And in particular in the United States, he has no influence on business voices, and he has no influence on the states and cities which are going ahead with getting America to meet its commitments.
And what kind of situation are we in with climate change? What are we looking at in 100 years from now, for example?
Oh, I think in 100 years from now, if we don't solve this problem, we won't be having good, reasonable discussions on television shows like this. What people haven't really grasped is the extent to which, if the climate changes at the current pace it is, that by the time we get to the end of this century, not even 100 years away, we're going to be in a world that's full of conflict, in which a lot of the sort of things we take for granted to make our economy work, to keep us secure, all of those things will be put at risk. We're seeing already the effects of climate change in countries, places like Africa, parts of South America, which is driving people off their lands as they become uninhabitable. We're seeing that effect now, not in huge numbers, but if we go on changing the climate at the rate we're changing now, we're going to get more of that. Well, you've already seen just how difficult it is if you get lots of people trying to move around on the planet. So you have problems like that. You've got problems with the fact that it will alter the amount of water that's available for human beings, particularly in parts of Asia, for instance, where you'll have real problems producing food enough for people to eat. All of those problems will get worse if we don't deal with this problem.
But of course, addressing the issue costs billions of pounds when budgets are already stretched.
No, the private sector could address this issue if government sets the right kind of policy framework. You have to think that if you don't solve this problem, you will definitely wreck your economy. Whereas what's now turning out is the more we move to a decarbonised economy, the better it actually is for the economy. It's much more efficient. We've got a whole range of new technologies generating new investment. So I'm not worried about the fact that it's going to cost a lot. It would cost a lot to keep everybody supplied with energy, however we do it.
Tom Burke, thanks very much for your thoughts. Appreciate your time this evening.